Hi there, this is Hans Forschner with Navcon Engineering. This is a short video to show the functionality of the noise mapping toolbox in SoundPLAN 7.2. Has a lot of functions, so here we actually concentrate us on a very simple part of the noise mapping toolbox that was initially developed for the EU noise directive in terms of assessing entire cities. Here we want to basically just use it to get statistical information in terms of like areas that exceed a certain dB level. And so to do that, we can either use the entire areas, we can define different zones, we can also use buildings if we do a calculation with a facade noise map. So right now I want to show you in the geodatabase. This is a project with road input, the railroad input. We have different zones. These are these big areas here that we defined with different usages. So usages meaning you have different zoning definition. You can also assign population density to that. If you have buildings in an area, you can also assign for these buildings also the population for these buildings. In terms of like here under GeoTools prepare buildings, you can assign defining inhabitant, so how many square meters is per inhabitant. This could be information that is collected through census data, for example. But in this area or this definition, we have basically the names of each of the areas and the zoning, and that's all I want to show you in terms of the geodatabase. So I assume you have a calculation of a contour map over an area. And what we can do is in the menu spreadsheet, we can load that information. So here we are in the spreadsheet of SoundPLAN. So here we can open up different tables. The one that we will be looking at is a conflict or area table. And we click New. I open up the situation that has all the zoning defined. So I'll open up my base model. You can just calculate it with the floating numbers. That basically means it will use the names that you have in the defined in the zones. So here we have the table with the name, the type, the size, and the occupants. So basically how many people live in each of these zones. I'm not interested in the type and the occupants. So first of all, I'll go into the table settings and turn off these columns. Now the next step is we have the different areas. And now the next step is we add an additional column which has the statistics. And to do the statistics, we go under Add Additional Columns, EU Area Statistics, and we load the result table. So here, these are the grid noise map results. You could do the same thing also for facade results. So facade maps, again, the program calculates around the building, for each side of the building, for each floor, and then again, we can do additional information with the population density. So we click Open here, and here we can do the assessment, and I want to do it based on the intervals, and I'll do 5 dB increments, and I'll go all the way to 80 decibels. The calculation spacing, we can do it in very small increments. I'll do it in like 5 by 5 meter increments, but you can also do it in a 1 meter increment section here. All right, click OK. I'm only interested in the daytime, so you can do that same thing for day, evening, and the LDEN. There's additional information where you can do it just for areas that are in schools or in zones that are in hospitals or kindergarten. So if you want to do any kind of additional information or column types that you want to add, this is where you can add that. At this point, I'm only interested in the size, so I'll just have the square kilometers. So here it does the calculation, and at this point, I want to do a couple of editing. So here I want to just call it area size, and the sizing I want to change it to kilometers, from square kilometer to meter squared. Now we need to change these square kilometer information to meters. So what we can do right click here, column layout, And here we have the factorization. So here it multiplies everything by e to minus 6. So we change it to 0. The decimal places we're not really interested. Font, couple editing, center, okay. And here we have our square meter exceeding or in the range of 55 to 60, 60 to 65, 65 to 70, and so on. We can do some additional editing here, fonts again, and we can center that too. So again, just similar to the normal documentation, you can do all kinds of editing. I save this at this point. And call it stats demo, override it, and we close it. Actually, before I close it, I want to show you export. We can export that into a tab delimited TXT file, and then with that you can of course open that into Excel and get any kind of post-processing in Excel. So at this point I'll close that, and I want to show you the graphics here. And in the graphics, we can now also show that table as part of the graphics. So here we can show the areas. So what this is basically this this menu spreadsheet. So we can open up a window and edit content, and we can assign the table that we just generated into this table. So here we have our demo. And we can edit it out of this menu, or we can just click OK, and we get the entire table. So here is the table that we just generated, and here is the table that was generated earlier. Now, one of the things you can see, there's different ways to look at this. You can define it in terms of intervals. So here in this case, 55 to 60, and so on and so on. So these are basically for each of these segments, the square meters that are exceeding within this level range. And here we have the intervals over 55, 60, and so on. So there are two ways of looking at the statistics. So let me close this, and at this point I'll finish the video. If you have any questions, please feel free to call me or shoot me an email. Thank you, and